So why is it that the guy who climbed up Trump Tower was able to hang on by just using a few suction cups? Well, today we're going to start Unit 6, Fluids. Before we jump into things that like to flow, we need to talk about this idea of pressure. And we'll use pressure to describe fluids a little bit later, but for now let's look at a more concrete example to help build a foundation. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a tack. So let's draw a picture of a tack here. Tack has a very large head on it, and then it comes down and has a little point that sinks into the wood. Of course, right here is where your finger is going to push down on the tack, and here is the piece of wood that we're going to sink the tack into. So why is it that when we're pushing a tack into a piece of wood, why is it that we want to push on the end with the very large surface area? How come we don't want to push on the end with the very small surface area? Well, this all comes down to this idea of pressure. The equation for pressure is given as pressure is force divided by the area of whatever it is that you're pushing with. So, if we look at this equation, if we look at the tack, we'll see that this tack, the top of it, has a very large surface area compared to the surface area at the very bottom, at the very tip. So let's keep pressure the same, and let's look at how, if one of these changes, how will it affect the other one? Well, if we are, first let's look at the surface where my finger is pushing on the very end of the tack. There's a large area here. So if this area is very, very large, that means that this force must be very, very small. Because this area is so big, it means that this force has to be small. They're inversely proportional. One is very large, that means the other one has to be very, very small. Now let's look at the interface between the wood and the point of the tack. Well, this surface area is very, very small. This area is tiny. So that means if this is really small, that means the force is very, very big, and the tack is able to sink in to the piece of wood. Now that we have a somewhat of an understanding of pressure, which is force divided by area, we can start to talk about fluids a little bit. Now, first let's talk about this pressure. First let's talk about pressure within our own atmosphere. We're going to talk about atmospheric pressure for a second. So if you go outside right now, here you are, and you look straight up, you're going to see a column of air that goes all the way up to where the atmosphere ends. And all of that air that's above you is in fact pushing down on you. All of that air that goes all the way up to the end of the atmosphere is pushing down on you. So the question is, how come you don't feel this column of air pushing down on you? How come you don't feel this column of air? Well, this is because the pressures are equalized. Okay, the pressures are equalized inside and outside of your body. So this air pressure, it's not just pushing down on you from the top, it's also pushing on you from the sides, diagonally. It's pushing on you from all directions. It's all encompassing. It's pushing you in all at once. But you don't feel the air pressure around you because the insides of you also have a certain pressure that's pushing out to match the air pressure that's pushing in. So we could remodel this like a balloon. Let's take a a balloon, for example. If we have a balloon, there is air pressure pushing on it from all sides, pushing in on it, trying so hard to deflate it. But if we did a good job and we tied our knot right, then that means that there will be also an equal amount of air pressure pushing out on it as well. If this pressure is greater than the outside pressure, then the balloon will expand. If we poke a hole in it, then the outside pressure will be larger than the inside pressure, and the balloon will contract. This difference in pressure, it turns out, is something that you probably have felt many times throughout your life. Think about driving up a hill very fast. Think about driving up a hill very fast. When you drive up a hill, there is less air above you as at the bottom of the hill. So you're driving up the hill and you feel your ears pop because you're feeling this pressure change. You're feeling, so your ear is basically a hole in the side of your head. And this is your eardrum. When you're at the bottom of the hill, the air pressures are equal and you feel no disturbance in your ear. However, when you go to the top of the hill, all of a sudden there's less air pushing on you pushing on your eardrum from the outside, and therefore you're going to feel a pressure behind your ear pushing out. So overall, your eardrum wants to expand out. It's the opposite process when you go down a hill, when there's more air above you and it's pushing your eardrum in. That's where your ears pop when you go down a hill. Swimming, when you dive down into a pool, you'll feel all of the water on top of you. The deeper you go, the more water that's above you, the more pressure that's pushing in on your ears. Now let's talk about suction cups and how this guy did it. Suction cups work on this idea of pressure as well. So first, let's draw a nice window. And let's draw our suction cup in two different cases. The first case is when we haven't pushed on the suction cup at all and it's just resting on the wall. Here's our suction cup here. So as of right now, there's still air on the inside pushing the suction cup out. The pressures are equalized, so if you just put the suction cup on the wall without pressing it, it's just going to fall because the pressure on the inside is equal to the pressure on the outside. However, when you push in on the suction cup and you flatten it out, all of a sudden there's just a little bit of air left in here, just a little bit of air, as opposed to all of the air on the outside that's pushing it back against the wall. So there's a pressure difference. Out here there is lots of pressure, and here there's just a little bit of pressure. So outside there's lots of pressure pushing in, and here there's not enough pressure to push the suction cup back out. So you're able to hang on it. So when you push a suction cup against the wall, all of the air around you is pushing that suction cup against the wall and it's helping it stick to the wall.